More hefty reveals for the Adeptus Mechanicus today. Today we get to see the new Canticles of the Omnissiah and Doctrina Imperatives for the Skitarii. Just from the face of it, it looks like Mars shooting is going to be very strong. Hello and welcome back to Auspex Tactics, where today we're going over some more previews from Games Workshop for the Adeptus Mechanicus Codex that's being released to pre-order this weekend. On Monday they gave us a big tour through the Forge Worlds. Today we have the Canticles of the Omnissiah and the Doctrina Imperatives. We don't yet have an entirely full picture, but the bits that we have do look pretty nice. So first up, let's start with Canticles of the Omnissiah, which as Admech players already know is already an ability in their book. Currently you either select one or roll for one at the start of each battle round, and it gives the entire Admech army a minor buff, things like re-rolling ones to hit, or getting them all in cover with Shroud's Arm. In the new book, however, it seems that they're splitting them down the middle. Basically, Canticles of the Omnissiah is going to be for the Cult Mechanicus units, things like Tech Priests, Servitors, Castellan robots, whereas the more militant Skitarii units, they're going to get these Doctrina Imperatives, an option that's currently confined to stratagems, but was a bit more useful back in 7th edition. In general, this split could be a bit of a good thing. You don't just have to choose one buff that affects the whole army, you might be able to have different chunks of your army, try and use the buff for achieving a certain thing. So in general, Canticles are just going to be the Cult Mechanicus units, but we did see on Monday that Mars are going to be able to get their Skitarii units to get the Canticles of the Omnissiah, so at first glance it looks like they'll both be able to pick up the buffs from the Canticles and layer that on top of the buffs from the Doctrina Imperatives. Potentially could be very scary indeed. Having two layers of quite powerful stacking buffs all on one unit isn't too bad at all. I'm going to guess that the Canticles will be remaining quite similar in the way that you put them on your units, probably still chosen at the start of the battle round, though in this article they haven't exactly stated how they'll be used, so that will be something that we'll have to wait for the Codex for clarification. I'm sure as with the old book, there'll still be some ways to manipulate them, much in the same way that Necrons can slightly manipulate their command protocols, maybe things like certain warlord traits or Belisarius core, maybe being able to recycle Canticles and use them again, or have better chances of rolling the one that you want. In any case, we have 3 Canticles of the Omnissiah here, and perhaps the most interesting change is the change to Benediction of the Omnissiah, the one that buffs shooting. Previously, this used to be just reroll ones to hit on a unit, which was kind of handy, but did overlap a bit with the Tech Priest Dominus. Instead, that's now going to be rerolling 1 hit roll, 1 wound roll, and 1 damage roll each time the unit shoots. To me, that just seems really solid on small units of Cataphrone Breachers or Destroyers. They tend to have small amounts of really quite high quality shots, and you could have lots of units of these in units of 3, so you get plenty of rerolls across the army. Potentially though, it does sound even more potent on masked Skitarii units. Imagine say an Iron Strider Ballistari with the las cannons having this. It only has 2 really powerful shots with D3 plus 3 damage. Rerolling 1 hit and 1 wound roll is basically like the old Master Artisans, and that's going to give some insane reliability with getting those hits through. I really like it though, it's just generally a solid shooting buff, and I think that Cataphrons will get on well with this one. Otherwise, the other 2 that they've previewed are a couple of more combat orientated ones. Chant of the Remorseless Fist gives you +1 strength as before, pretty handy for some Electro Priests, could be good on those Fulgurites. And the other one, which is Invocation of Machine Vengeance, seems like a new one to the Codex. Each time you roll an advance and charge roll for the Cult Mechanicus units, you'll roll an extra d6 and discard the lowest. For advances, this is really quite underwhelming to be honest, it only adds up to around about an extra inch difference at best, but an extra inch or so's difference could be really important on the charge. I could imagine this one being quite powerful on say things like Riser units jumping out of Dune Riders or out of Strategic Reserve. You're going to be able to get very long charge rolls off that with +1 to charge and the extra d6 benefit as well. It will be interesting to see exactly how we can manipulate these. If we are able to get multiple turns of Benediction of the Omnissiah off, that could lead to a lot of dead opponents very quickly. The other half of the story though are these new Doctrina Imperatives, which at first glance do seem to be somewhat similar to the Canticles, this time only being able to be used for Skitarii units. In the article, Games Workshop confirmed that they would work on Dragoons, Rangers and Roststalkers. If I had to guess, I would guess that they're going to be able to be used on Skitarii vehicles, things like Dune Riders or Scorpius tanks, though it would be nice to have some sort of confirmation of that. Until we see the full rules, I think that there's at least some chance that it might just be limited to just core units, or have some sort of limits as well, such as only units next to Admech characters, like the Necrons get. In any case, apparently you choose one of the 4 Doctrina Imperatives at the start of each battle round. It doesn't say whether you can reuse them or not. Lots of questions here to be honest, but each one of these has a benefit and a depreciation, so you gain yourself 1 buff at the cost of 1 debuff. The 2 that they've shown us seem really powerful indeed. The first one is Bulwark Imperative, that costs your units -3 movement, so it is going to hamper the movement of your vehicles, and it's going to make any foot-slogging Skitarii units almost stationary. But as a trade-off for that, if you don't need to move, then you get a +1 to your armor save, though it is capped at a 2+ save for any units that already had a 2+ from whatever reason. At first glance, this seems really quite strong on things like Dragoons or Iron Striders, if they happen to be already in a position where they don't need the extra 3-inch movement. 7-inch movement is already pretty adequate, and going from a 3+ to a 2+ save is going to make them so much more sturdy. If you happen to have entire wings of Archaeopters flying around, this could be pretty handy on them, presuming of course that they can get this buff in the new Codex, as they don't really care about losing 3-inch movement on their enormous movement range, but going up from a 3+ to a 2+ save is pretty powerful. The other one that was seen previewed is the Protector Doctrina Imperative. The optimization gives you +1 to your ballistic skill, and the depreciation gives you -1 to your weapon skill. Now obviously this is just an absolutely huge buff, potentially army-wide +1 to your shooting on a shooting faction, at least out of the Skitarii units anyway, is really nice. It also comes without really too much of a downside. If your unit's a shooting unit, you don't really care about how well it's going to hit things in close combat. So say you had a lot of gunline Skitarii units, you could quite happily use this without any real downside. I'm going to guess that the reverse is going to be possible. You're going to be able to stack a 2+ weapon skill at the cost of -1 ballistic skill. It seems likely that they're going to be able to have the option for melee Skitarii, not just shooting Skitarii. I'd be absolutely amazed if that isn't one of the last two. Who knows, maybe we'll be able to trade out 3 inches worth of movement for getting -1 save as well. That seems like a far worse trade, but it could just literally be the opposite of the Bulwark Imperative. In any case, for the Protector Imperative, it does seem that this could make some incredibly nasty Mars shooting. Say a few gunline units of Iron Striders, or with the Protector Imperative, hitting the enemy on 2s with those las cannons, and then re-rolling a hit, wound and damage roll with the benediction of the Omnissiah, you're going to be able to pull off an insane amount of Alpha Strike on the turn that you choose to deploy this. Combine that with any character buffs that you might be able to get. I'm sure the Dominus, Manipulus and Cool will be able to help out shooting, and he could be potentially in for a very scary time indeed. Mars also gets a single unit hit roll built in within the Doctrine as well, so you're actually going to be re-rolling 2 hits while hitting on 2s and 1 wound roll, combined with the amped up weapons already previewed in Codex Adeptus Mechanicus, and it all looks very scary indeed. I do feel though that by having Doctrina Imperatives that -1 to weapon skill and +1 to shooting while army wide, it is going to likely make you going to want to specialise your Skitarii forces either for shooting or for combat. You're not going to be very incentivized to mix and match, as you might well just be helping out one portion of your army while hurting another if you're taking both melee and shooting troops. I think army construction could be pretty interesting when we see the full rules. So anyway, let me know what you think of the news down in the comments below. Are you looking forward to Skitarii units slogging forward with indomitable armor or incredible accuracy, and all manner of fun re-rolls for the Cult Mechanicus stuff? If you'd like to see more like this, feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics. I'll certainly be keeping the coverage of any new Admech rules that we get coming, and review the Codex in full, likely within the first few days after it drops. Feel free to subscribe to the channel, or just check back later if you'd like to see more. Finally, if you'd like to help out with the channel and help keep the videos coming, I would just like to mention that I do have a Patreon page down in the video description. The channel Patreon is what allows me to spend quite so much time making videos about model soldiers, so if you are enjoying regularly, any support is enormously appreciated. Channel patrons do get a fair few advantages, seeing certain videos early, regular votes to see what sort of things happen next on the channel, and automatic entry to the regular prize giveaways with a chance to win some big model kits every month. If any of that sounds good to you, or you'd just like to help support, then the link is down in the video description. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.